Hello and welcome to this urban sketch technique tutorials, and I want to demonstrate the brush pens, the Tombow brush pens. And what we see in the reference picture is a cabin in the woods. It's a watermill actually, and what I especially love about this picture is that the water stream which is coming down in the middle of those boulders or sideways of the boulders. So the water is tumbling down, and I thought, well, it would be nice to try and sketch that with the Tombow brush pens. So what I do first is I try to figure out the flow of the water, and I'm not going to draw in each and every boulder or every rock. I just want a plain vision of what I'm seeing here, and I'm using a light blue brush pen so that I can always correct it over it with the darker brush pens. So I figure out kind of the perspective lines here. So the rooftop above the water wheel is lower on the left side and somewhat higher on the right side. And then this is the side of the building here. And there's some rocks there keeping that building up. And then I just try not to go in too deep into the perspective, but this is the underneath of the building, and the building is like this deep. So I just try to check that out. Then this is the side of the roof, and then this is the top of the building. And this is kind of a porch that protects the water wheels. And should you want to see the whole process in real time, you can find that on my Patreon page. Should you be interested, you are very welcome to follow me there. Now this building actually has two water wheels. One you can hardly see, this left one, and the other one you can see quite clearly, that's the right one. And they have those little sticks there with the ash in the middle, in the center, so that it can spin around its axis, and so the right wheel can be seen quite clearly. Now this is the thickness of the roof, and this is the side of the roof. So I'll just point that out a little bit. And the top of the roof you can hardly see because of the perspective, but I'll just draw it kind of in. And this is some kind of a high door opening, and I can see some windows with some shuts or something, and the whole building is made out of planks, and it's it's a bit whimsical. The planks also are very whimsical, and that's just fine with me, because then I can draw in like a nice whimsical. And way in the back we can see some trees going on, and some pine tree. So this is where the hills are. So I'll just point out some branches and some of the stems of the trees, so that you can imagine that there is a forest going on there. So I kind of draw a sort of a blueprint of what I'm seeing, and I'm simply starting out with the light blue brush pen and try to figure out the symmetry of the darker and the lighter areas, so that you can get some rhythm. You can see some rhythm starting to show in those rocks, in the boulders, the stream of water going in between the boulders, just by simply using the blue pen. Then it's time to shift to a darker color. It's well, brownish, greenish, gray, and it's well, quite darker than the blue that I started out with. And with this more dark brush pen, I simply start to look for the darkest areas. And I carefully draw in between the compartments of the water wheel itself, creating some shadow underneath and a little bit of shadow in between the rocks, so that the water wheel will stay visual. And what you can also see are very dark areas in between the rock. So I simply try to follow the rhythm of the lights and the darks. And this is a lighter brush pen, and I can use that for the mid-tones. So I simply use it for the background, of course, for the little trees that are going on around and behind the cabin, and I use it for the shadow that is underneath the roof overlap. And I can also use it to create a little bit of structure in the big rocks that are tumbling towards us. Now this is a well, kind of a light pink color, and as I was watching the reference picture, I can see some of those light pinks back in the rock and in the cabin itself. So I'll just point out some pink areas and just see if it works. But I think this is bringing us a nice feel of the pink areas. And this is somewhat more yellow. It's a light yellow color, and everywhere where the sun hits the rocks or the cabin or something, I add a little bit of yellow. And this is my green, the 192, and there are a lot of mosses on the rocks, so I simply place them next to the yellow areas, and then I can focus on the darkest areas. So then I use my brush pen, which is the darkest gray. It's a Pines gray, and by adding those really dark shadows, you can bring out the contrast in your urban sketch. This is a nice technique of using just a few simple colors from your brush pen, but you can still imagine the water flowing down towards us. And a little bit of blue for the water, and then at the final stage I simply take my little fine liner to add some well, whimsical lines to get some detail or some little bit of structure going on, and then that works its way towards the viewer. So well, the final stage is my fine liner, and then you have a very simple sketch, but it's still very nice to do. So hope you will give it a try, and maybe I will see you on my Patreon page if you want to learn more. For now, I would say thank you for watching.